Now we will move to part C. Here we need to calculate coefficient of variance. Here we need to calculate coefficient of variance, which is CV. The formula for coefficient of variance is sigma divided by mu into 100%, and if it is sample, we will use, instead of sigma we can use standard deviation, which is S, and instead of mu we can use x bar into 100%. So here we have, standard deviation we have calculated is 5.2735. So that means standard deviation is 5.2735, and average was 12.7 into 100%. If you calculate it, that means coefficient of variance is 41.523%. Now part D, detecting outlier. As I have told you, we can detect outlier using two methods. We can use Z-score method, and also we can use IQR method. First we will use Z-score method. If the data falls outside x bar plus minus 3 C standard deviation or mu plus minus 3 sigma limit, or if the Z-score value is outside plus minus 3 level, then the data will be considered as an outlier. So here let us calculate the limit, mu plus minus 3 sigma. So mu is average, which is 12.7 for our case, plus minus 3 into sigma means standard deviation. We have calculated standard deviation. Standard deviation was 5.2735. So that means standard deviation is 5.2735. If you calculate it, 12.7 plus minus, you can see 3 into 5.2735 is 15.8205. So first we will take minus 12.7 minus this one to 12.7, then we will take plus 15.8205. If you calculate it, you will see the limit is between minus 3.12 to 28.52. Now as you can see, the marks, the data we have given is highest value is 20 and lowest value is 3. That means highest mark obtained by student is 20 and lowest mark obtained by student is 3. And from the Z-score we can see the range can be between minus 3.12 to 28.52 to if a student got marks between these range, then it will not be considered as outlier. We can see we do not have any outlier in the data set, because the lowest marks in the data set we have given, in that data set the lowest mark was 3, highest mark was 20, and none of these marks are outside the limit. That means all these marks are within the limit. That means the highest mark was 20. We can see that we can go up to 20.52 level, and that means there is no outlier observation in the data set. Now if we use IQR method, IQR is equal to Q3 minus Q1. That means Q3 we have calculated. Q3 is quartile 3, Q1 is quartile 1. We have already calculated before. So that means IQR is 9.75. So upper fence is Q3 plus 1.5 into IQR. So if you calculate it, it is 31.875. Lower fence is Q1, that means quartile 1 minus 1.5 into IQR. You can see that means lower fence is equal to minus 7.125. That means if a student got marks above this one, then it will be considered as outlier. If a student got marks below this one, then it is an outlier. We do not have any outlier observation in the data set, because highest value is 20 for our case and lowest mark is 3, are within the upper and lower fence. That means how many students had a test scores between 2 to 23.5. So we have calculated Z-score. Here you can see x bar is mu, average is 12.7. We have calculated it before, and standard deviation we have calculated is 5.2735. So if we calculate Z-score, we can see the value is between minus 2.029 to 2.0479. So you can see, since the value is almost here also almost 2, here also almost 2, we round it to minus 2 to plus, minus 2 to plus 2. So that's why we can use Chebyshev's theorem, because both the value here also 2, here also 2. So if you remove the plus minus sign, that means the value of z is absolute value of z is 2. That means we can use Chebyshev theorem. Chebyshev theorem says that at least 1 minus 1 upon k square into 100% student falls within that range. That means k is z, the value of z is 2. That means here in Chebyshev's theorem k is 2. So if you put the value, that means 75%. That means 75% means we have total number of student is 10 multiplied by 75%, that means 7.5 student. As you know that student, that means people or person cannot be fraction, so we round it to next level, that means 8, almost 8, at least 8 students. Excuse me. So that means at approximately 8, according to Chebyshev's theorem, at least 8 students fall within the 2 to 23.5 marks range. If you use empirical formula, you don't have to use z table here, because value of z is 2 to value of z, absolute value of z is 2. That means approximately 95% student falls within the range. That means 9.5 student. That means if you round it, that means approximately 10 students. That means approximately all students falls within this range. Now we will move to next question. Next question says, how many students had test scores between 3 to 18? So as you can see, we have calculated z score. So here the average was 12.7 and standard deviation was 5.2735. So we have given the value in the formula. So you can see the value of z is from minus 1.8393 to 1.005. As I have told you before, we can only take value of z up to 2 decimal point. That means minus, we need to round it. That means minus 1.84 to 1.01. So you can see here the value of z is minus 1.84 and here is 1.01. So the absolute value, that means you have, if you remove the plus minus sign, values of z's are not same. So that means Chebyshev theorem cannot be applied. If we had only single value like before, then we could have used Chebyshev theorem. But since here the value is 1.84 and here the value is 1.01, not same, because of that we cannot use Chebyshev theorem, but we can apply empirical theorem. That means we can use z table. So here the value of z's are between minus 1.84 to z value 1.01. That means you need to find out the area of this shaded portion. First of all, you will use the table where z values are negative. So we will use this z table where the values of z's, you can see values of z values are all negative. So we have the z value is minus 1.84. So we will look for minus 1.8. This is the, as you can see, this is the column for z, and this is the row for minus 1.8. But we have 1.84. That means we have to go for number 4. That means this is the row for so as you can see, this is the row for minus 1.8 and this is the column for 0.04. Since we have the z value is minus 1.84, we will take this value, that means 0.0329. So 0.0329 is our value. So as you can see, 0.0329 when we have taken negative value of z. Now we will go to positive value of z table. The positive value of z is 1.01. Positive value of z is 1.01. The positive value of z is 1.01. So we need to look for 1.01. So this is the row for 1.01 and 1.0. So we have 1.01. So that means this is the one column. So that means value is 0.8438. So that means this is the value 1.8438. 1.8438. This is the value. This is our value 0.8438. As you can see, the value is value is 0.8438. So like before, this is 0.8438 is from this one to this one, but we don't need the whole area. We need the area from this one to this one only. So that means we need area from this one to this one only. So we'll deduct this one from this one. So to get the value, it is 0.8101. That means 81.09%. That means approximately 8 students. Approximately 8 students. So next question is saying how many students at test scores between 11 to 16. We have calculated the z score. So minus 0.32 to 0.63. So if you use the when you use z value from minus 0.32, you get the area 0.3745. When you use the z positive value z table, you get the area 0.7357. So if you deduct this one from this one, we get approximately 36.12%. That means 4 students approximately. Now the last question. Now the last question was what was our last question? Last question was, do you think this is the last question, do you think it's unusual to get 29.5 marks in the test? Right. So that means, do you think 29.5 marks is an outlier? So as you can see, when we use z score to identify outlier, we can see 29.5 marks is an outlier since it lies above the 3 standard deviation limit. That means you can see when we calculate z score limit, we have seen that the answer was from minus 3.12 to 28.52. That means if a student got above 28.52, it's an outlier. So 29.5 marks is an outlier when we use z score to find outlier. However, when we use IQR method to identify outlier, we can see 29.5 marks is not an outlier since it lies within the lower fence and upper fence. We have calculated upper fence, which was 31.875, and you can see 29.5 marks is within this upper fence limit. So when we use IQR method, in that case 29.5 marks is not an outlier. Thank you all. If you have any questions, if you have any trouble to understand, if you get any trouble to understand this chapter, please call me or chat me in Skype. Thank you all.